there with us.
All right.
Amy.
Hit the go live button.
Amy.
I'm gonna head over there and see if it's working.
Thank you. As soon as I see, yes, we got feeds.
You
here.
are connected. I'm seeing you in YouTube.
Great. Apologies. I am so sorry that it has been such a frustration getting going. I hope it'll go wicked smooth from here on. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Bonner. I am the director of the Ferguson Municipal Public Library. In a moment, I will introduce our moderator, but first I want to say thank you to our moderator, to our timekeeper. Thank you to our candidates for Ferguson Mayor, and thank you for your patience as we do this. And especially thank you to all of you who are watching and for your patience too. Civic engagement is vital to the functioning of our democracy, and I thank all of you for stepping up to be informed voters. There will be another forum like this for the school board candidates on Wednesday the 29th. It will also be virtual. The library offers free notary services, so we can help with your absentee ballots. Speaking of civic engagement, I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for helping to put on this event. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization with a long and storied history of encouraging civic engagement and informed voting. Lisa Collier of the League of Women Voters is our moderator, and she will introduce the other participants. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you, Scott, for that introduction. Good evening, and on behalf of the St. Louis League of Women Voters, we are honored to be asked to hold this important candidate forum for the citizens of Ferguson. Special thanks to Scott Bonner for his hard work on this event, and I will be your moderator tonight. I want to thank the candidates for participating. Thank you to the citizens of Ferguson for tuning in. And remember, as you listen to these candidates, you will elect one of these candidates to serve as your mayor for a term of 4 years.
It's 3 years.
3 years?
Yes, ma'am.
3 years, I'm sorry. 3 years. And they are in order as they appear on the ballot. Ella Jones, candidate number 1, candidate number 2, Nicholas Kasoff. The League of Women Voters, as Scott has explained, is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy through education and advocacy. The League believes one of the best ways for voters to learn about people seeking election is to hear candidates speak and answer questions in a public forum. They will give their opening statements in the order as described previously, and their closing statements will be in the reverse order. Many say that civil discussion of community issues is impossible since we are so politically divided. But I know that you have come tonight because you care about Ferguson and want to make an informed decision before you vote. The following rules will enable us to work together tonight to make that happen. We want to thank the citizens for their overwhelming response in submitting questions. In fact, we have so many questions. I just got 3 more pieces of paper with questions on it. So we may have more questions than we have time. So if your question is not asked tonight, please forgive me. It's just that we have a time constraint. So each question will be directed to both candidates. And because of the large response, there may, again, a possibility that all questions submitted will not be asked due to time restraint. I will ask the question in the order that they were given to me. The candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening and closing statement, and 1 minute to answer each question. You have the right to speak to all questions, including those posted specifically to another candidate. Your remarks should focus on what you believe. You should not present your own, you should present your own position and not refer to an opponent or opponent's position or an opponent's remarks. If you do not respect this guideline, I will ask the tech host to mute you. The timekeeper, who is Sue Williams, you'll see her, will time all opening statements, candidate answers to questions, and closing arguments. The time will begin at the first utterance of your statement. The timer will indicate when there is 30 seconds time remaining with a yellow card, and then indicate time expired with a red card, at which time you should cease speaking. Should you continue to speak after the red card has been displayed, again, you will be muted. So now let's begin. And we're going to start with candidate Ella Jones. You have 2 minutes to give your opening statement. Ella Jones.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ella Jones. I am the mayor of the city of Ferguson, and the people elected me in 2020 to lead this city, and especially through the pandemic. Before I was elected as mayor, I served on the city council for 5 years and a council rep for the traffic commission, the senior citizen commission, the landmarks, and the West Florissant business district. My family and I have lived in this city for 45 years, and we call this home. I have volunteered for the Ferguson Florissant School District, for Griffith School as a treasurer, and in the PTO. Also, I was a Girl Scout leader. I am so compassionate about this city that I resigned my position as a Mary Kay sales director to serve my community full time. Ferguson is a place that I want all of us to have a good place to live, work, and play. I have the mindset and the heart and the character to do this work and continue the work that I started in the first 3 years of me being the mayor. Ferguson is in a place right now that we need to come and continue to work together in order to get full compliance on the consent decree. Ferguson is a good place for everyone to retire and raise their children. As mayor of the city of Ferguson, I am committed and will stay committed to work this challenging job for all people in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Nicholas Kasoff, candidate number 2. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening.
Statements.
The city of Ferguson is in a crisis. Our streets are crumbling and terrorized by reckless driving that goes unpunished. We go to sleep with the lullaby of gunfire, and too many of our residents feel unsafe in their own homes. We have turnover at City Hall that rivals a fast food restaurant. And because it lacks leadership, our city council veers between non-productive and chaotic. Ferguson needs better leadership, and we need it now. And I have the experience to provide that leadership. In the aftermath of the unrest, I saw that police cameras could have prevented a catastrophe. So I led a team that brought a charter amendment for cameras to a public vote, and the voters of this city passed it by more than 70%. A few years later, when the Ferguson Times ceased publication, I started the Ferguson Observer, an online newspaper that focuses on City Hall. We've promoted a lot of good things and exposed a few scandals along the way. And this fall, when one member of council persisted in going rogue against our city manager, I worked to recall her from office. The voters of Ward 2 approved that effort by more than 70%. I also serve as chair of the Traffic Commission, working to find solutions to the deadly problems plaguing our streets. As your next mayor, I'll bring a great skill set, a positive attitude, a commitment to consensus and respect, and a strong desire to move the city forward for the benefit of everyone who calls Ferguson home. 4 of the 6 council members want me for their next mayor. Tonight, I'll show you why you should join them.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get started with question number 1, and that will direct back to Mayor Ella Jones. How do you feel about forming partnerships with county on issues like traffic, policing, and street repair?
We are always in a partnership on the council. You have 7 people with different personalities, but the goal is to find common ground, to work together, to move the city forward. Partnership is what that makes this city drives. It's people working together as a team. And the more we work together as a team, the better off the city will be. Now, let me remind you, we are always going to disagree, but it's important to know you don't have to be disagreeable. Partnership with every member on the council is important, especially when bills come up that needs our attention and to make a better place for all of the citizens in Ferguson to live. Collaboration, partnership, relationship is the key to any leadership group.
Thank you. Okay.
Lisa, to clarify before I answer, did you say the county or the council?
It says, how do you feel about forming partnerships with county on issues like traffic, policing, and street repair?
Okay, so not council, county.
County,
Because the mayor answered the other question. Okay, so as far as forming partnerships with county, the county has particular things that are within their wheelhouse. Chambers Road is a county road. And the unincorporated areas around us are policed by the county police. As a municipality, we have primary responsibility for the things that we own. Now, clearly we need to reach out and have some productive partnerships with county. And I really look forward to our new police chief starting, because I think we're going to see some partnerships with county that are helpful to us, particularly as we remain understaffed in our police department. So definitely want to reach out to county and see how they can be helpful. But at the same time, our autonomy as a city is very important. After the unrest, there was some talk about us bringing the county police in instead of Ferguson PD. Nobody wanted to do that.
Okay. Okay, Nicholas, I'm going to direct this question to you. In 2014, the I Love Ferguson nonprofit was created to help businesses in Ferguson. It raised and donated over $100,000. What role or thoughts do you have of the organization?
I Love Ferguson at the time was controversial, and we were a very divided city then, and unfortunately, we remain so today. I'm somebody who has been on both sides of the divide here in Ferguson. I was aware of what was going on in 2014, and I worked on some things that some of my friends on one side were not very pleased about. But the fact of the matter is, we live in a famous city. We are always on the path to justice here. I'm somebody who has always participated in that, who firmly believes in that. I'll push to complete the consent decree. I haven't been an elected official since the consent decree was signed, so this will be my first opportunity, but I'll get the consent decree done, and that will be the ultimate thing to do for loving Ferguson.
Okay, Mayor Jones, same question. Did you need?
When the I Love Ferguson was established, Brian Fletcher was one of the key people who worked with other citizens like Sandy Sansevier. They formed I Love Ferguson to work with the North County Inc. to get the funds in to help the businesses that needed extra training, probably setting up their plan for action. I love the I Love Ferguson group simply because when we had a study by Peter Belmio, his thing was to make certain something happen every year for the Michael Brown unrest. And we started, I am the chairperson of the Unity Weekend. And the first donation for the Unity Weekend came from Brian Fletcher and the I Love Ferguson committee. So they were committed to working on relationships for the whole city and not just certain groups.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this question is directed to you, Mayor. Do you believe the current policies and procedures in police in Ferguson are adequate to address crime that has rapidly increased over the last several years?
Well, we have here in Ferguson, our police department, our goal is to continue to hire qualified officers to work in our city. At one point, the numbers have been down, and the police chief at the time, Chief McCall and the other chiefs were working diligently to get our numbers up so we can have a traffic team to go out and monitor the traffic, have someone to work in the narcotics department. So with the new police chief, I'm certain after 31 years of service in St. Louis County, he is going to rapidly move to our police department in the areas that they need to start policing more.
Thank you.
And it's always great to have a relationship with St. Louis County, and I have a good relationship with Executive Sam Page and Councilwoman Retta Days.
Thank you. Okay, Nicholas Kasoff, same question.
I think it's really funny to suggest that Chief McCall was working diligently. The people of this community would say that Chief McCall was a failure and that under him, the department atrophied and crime steadily increased in our community to the extent that there's people who don't feel safe living here anymore. We've got 80-mile-per-hour traffic through neighborhoods. We've got gunfire almost every night. And the buck stops here with the police chief. Now, I'm confident that our new chief is going to be better, and I'm delighted that Frank McCall chose to resign, even though he was a year and a half short of vesting in our pension plan. I'm sure that was a voluntary resignation, but we'll get a better chief in here. Hopefully we'll develop some policies and procedures to move this city forward so that people stop moving away because they feel they're in danger. So right now, no, they are not adequate at all.
Okay, this question is directed towards you. Many events that the citizens of Ferguson enjoy used to be organized by citizens. They have now transitioned to city-sponsored events, causing an increase in demands on the already strapped budget. What do you propose to increase citizen participation?
Well, look, I think it's a terrible shame that things have dropped off the way they have. When we moved here in 2005, you go to the 4th of July parade and you could barely get a space on the sidewalk. They were lined up several people deep. And now you go to the 4th of July parade and you could have half a block to yourself. So there's clearly been a change in the level of civic involvement in this community. It didn't start when Mayor Jones took office 3 years ago, but it hasn't gotten any better since she did.
Okay,
I plan to be a cheerleader for everybody in this city and inclusive of everybody in the city to get that participation level back up again so that events like the 4th of July and the concerts at 501 and other things have that strong turnout and public enthusiasm that we used to have just a few years ago.
Okay, Mayor Jones, same question.
Citizen participation is number one, simply because we do have various events. We have various gardens that are being grown with citizens teaching youth how to garden. Also, we have our Juneteenth celebration, was spearheaded by the citizen. And this is the third year that the citizens is going to get together to do the Juneteenth event. And we have concerts at the 501 Plaza. We do have citizens to volunteer their time. And more importantly, is our run. Ferguson has a run every year, and it is really geared up by citizens volunteering. So the more we invite citizens in to participate in various organizations, the citizens are really going to continue to work and do the things it takes to have a good time in their community.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question, and this is directed at you, Mayor. Would you support a policy to prevent elected officials, past and present, from buying property from the city of Ferguson that were abated or demolished?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Okay. We just recently had that come about on the council. And after the city attorney explained it thoroughly to the residents as to why this person on the council can get this property. And the purpose of it is we are giving the property to this person. The person is not buying the property. The charter permits us from buying for the city, but in this case, this is a rare case, and I'm in agreement with it simply because this is going to help stabilize this neighborhood where this house had been sitting looking ugly. Now it's going to be rehab. But no, this is one of the best things that we could have done. No money is being exchanged. So let the person have the property to fix it up.
Okay, Nicholas Kasoff.
There are some members of our council who have voted against this in the past, and it's the Get Mike Palmer group. I mean, let's be very clear. There are people who are mad that Mike Palmer is on city council and they vote against anything that he wants to do. The unfortunate reality for that faction is that Mike Palmer is one of the few people who's been willing to rehab these houses. He's getting houses that I wouldn't take for free. Half the back wall was missing on one of the houses. You could stand in the living room and look at the backyard, and I don't mean through the window either. He has the skills and the workers and the resources to bring these houses back to life, restore neighborhoods, and put them back on the tax roll. And I say 3 cheers for Mike Palmer. Let's get more people involved in that property restoration program. Let's put it out there more broadly and get more participants, and maybe we can get all these derelict houses taken care of.
Thank you. Okay, this question is directed towards you, Nicholas. What are you going to do about the bad streets?
About the bad streets?
Yes.
Okay, well, you know, it's funny because our streets have deteriorated so rapidly and so greatly in the last few years that it's dangerous to drive through some of our neighborhoods. Just a couple of weeks ago, a trash truck literally fell through the street on Royal Avenue. And when they finally got the truck out of there and you look, there was a big cavern underneath. Now, I took the bull by the horns with that situation, and contacted the water company because there had been a water leak there. They contacted the sewer district. It happened to be a collapsed sewer line, and the sewer district came out and fixed it. So there's a lot of opportunities in our city where it's not the city's fault, and we can get these things fixed at no cost. But there's nobody at City Hall that's doing it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get these other entities that are responsible for damaging our streets to step up, and then we'll move on to the other problems.
Okay, Mayor Jones, would you answer that
Repeat the
same
question.
please? Question
Repeat
is,
the
what are you
question.
going to do about the bad streets?
Well, first of all, Public Works, they are working as diligently as they can to patch the streets. Some of the streets are too far gone. We have a rating system for the streets, and if a street is rated to the point where it's you can't patch it, then we have funding set aside in the budget to improve and repair streets. However, patching the streets are just a short time fix. We need to look at a bond issue that we can raise because of our Moody rating has increased, and we can work with the citizens to do a bond issue to get enough funding to repair all the streets, where it would take us about 3 years once we get this funding. But continue to patch the streets, continue to do what we can do until we get where we can do a long-term solution.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Jones, would you support an audit of the city by the Missouri State Auditor? Why or why not?
Yes, I would support an audit by the state of Missouri, simply because we need to know, and some of the citizens are feeling like that the Prop P money has not been put in the general fund. The economic development sales tax money has been spent the way it wanted to be spent. So there are some other things that need to be looked at in the budget, and hopefully that we will have an audit that will go back 5 years. That would not only include my 3 years, but 2 years of the previous mayor. So if we don't have nothing to hide, then a state audit will be welcome.
Thank you. Okay, candidate Nicholas Kasoff, same question.
Well, funny that you ask about a state audit, because a couple of years ago, I was involved with a group that passed a petition trying to get a state audit, and we got absolutely no support from any elected official in the city. We ran out of time, and we were about 50 signatures short of what we needed, so that didn't happen. It just so happens that the governing body of a municipality can also pass a bill and request the state audit. So if I'm mayor on day one, I'll introduce that bill to ask the state auditor to come in. That could have happened any time in the past if anybody on council had done it, but nobody did. I will, and I'll do it on day one.
Okay. This question is directed towards you, Nicholas. What steps are needed to conclude the DOJ consent decree? What would you do to move Ferguson toward a suitable closure of the agreement?
Well, look, we need to take a serious and systematic approach. First of all, we need a spreadsheet with all of the steps that we need to complete. It just so happens that the DOJ made one 7 years ago. Problem is, nobody's updated it in the last 7 years. So I've already sent an email to the DOJ asking if they can update that on a regular basis. As the mayor, first of all, we'll have a monthly consent decree update at city council so that everybody knows what's going on, who's responsible, and when we're going to get it done. And second of all, look, I'm not going to go to a consent decree meeting and make comments insinuating that there's sexual harassment going on in city government either. I'm going to take a serious, systematic approach, as I said, and we're going to get that consent decree done, hopefully within a year after I take office. But, you know, that depends on cooperation from other people in the city.
Thank you. Mayor Jones, same question.
Well, the consent decree, right now, the court is 2/3 complete with their part of the consent decree. And that was looking at the cases and dismissing. We had almost 4,000 cases. The court and the attorney had to sit down along with the prosecuting attorney and look at those cases and see which ones can be dismissed. Our police department are working on their policies. They have completed the stop and search policy. They have completed, but anyway, I got 30 seconds. Anyway, the most important thing right now to get the consent decree completed, we must hire a trainer for the police department. Number two, we must have a community engagement person to work along with our consent decree coordinator. We've been in this consent decree since 2016 with the new police chief working with the police department. I know we can finish this consent decree in the next couple of years.
Okay. Okay, thank you. This question is for you, Mayor Jones. What are the steps needed to reform our code inspection process as it relates to apartment complexes to avoid the calamities like the Versailles apartments? And what would you do to make this happen?
First of all, we have absentee landlords, and then we have some of these absentee landlords from out of the area giving money to candidates to make certain that they will oust the new the mayor and some city employees. When you look at code enforcement, the number one thing that our code need to be, they need to be certified. Our code officers, they must be certified. And what happened at Versailles, the code department continued to reach out and try to work with this absentee landlord. And now, since we have taken the code department and put them back with Public Works, and they have a good director instructing them as code, they are working through the code violations that is on Versailles and any other apartment complex here in the city of Ferguson.
Thank you. Okay, Nicholas Kasoff, same question.
Let's be clear, we have a new public works director because the Ferguson Observer caught the old public works director signing off on fraudulent invoices, and you can check our website on that. But as far as code enforcement at the apartment complexes, look, we have fallen down on the job for years. We don't go to those apartment complexes unless something's on fire or collapsing. And that's how you end up in situations like Versailles. Those people didn't have hot water for a year, and they just now fixed it. And we have similar problems in some of the other apartment complexes. One apartment complex, the owner called me because they wanted to put in speed bumps and nobody at City Hall would answer their call. So yes, apartment complex owners are supporting me, and here's why. We're going to have an open line to City Hall, and we're going to respond to these apartment complexes where hundreds of families live and that have such a big impact on the quality of life in Ferguson. We're going to be proactive, and we're going to answer the phone when they call. That's not happening today.
Okay, thank you. Now, this question is directed to you, Nicholas. There's been a lot of talk in this election cycle of moving forward. Please explain how you define this phrase as it relates to Ferguson, and what actions will you take as mayor to move Ferguson forward?
Well, I mean, you're asking me about the mayor's campaign slogan. So, my feeling is that we haven't been moving forward for a while. What we need to realize here in Ferguson is that whether you're black or white, whether you're rich or poor, whether you live in a mansion or an apartment, we all live in the same city and we rise and fall together. We have to pay attention to the quality of living in the poor neighborhoods. So if you live on Plaza and Mueller, the city has ignored those people. The streets are crumbly, the occupancy is out of control, the police response isn't great. We're going to focus attention on the apartment complexes and some of these more modest neighborhoods, because I believe the city is only as good as the worst neighborhood in the city. And this strategy that's been followed for mayor after mayor after mayor of ignoring certain parts of town, I'm going to end that.
Okay, same question.
Moving Ferguson forward is depicted about working with the people and listening to the people. When we went to Ward 3 and started working over in Ward 3, we realized that it was being underserved and the children didn't have a decent place to play. So I worked with various nonprofits, unions, and got together and raised $175,000 to build a park in the undeserved area. If we're going to move forward, we've got to have everybody working together. We've got to treat everyone the same. And the quality of life that is deemed for the people in Ward 1 and 2 should be deemed for the people in Ward 3. But it's only going to get better when you roll up your sleeves and you go in these underserved neighborhoods and work with the people and help them to find better employment.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Okay, Mayor Jones, recent improvements projects in our town, such as new parks, are the result of various grants. Grants generally provide seed money to get projects going, but usually do not provide funding for an ongoing maintenance or personnel salary support for additional staff requirements. We seem to be too dependent on grants and not enough on strategies that will provide for both capital improvement and the support funding to maintain sustainability on the money spent. How can we change our thinking to be less dependent on grants?
Well, as far as grants are good. They come in and enhance the ability of the city. Now, when you work for grants on the street, like the STP grants, they're 80-20% match. We use grants to better the roads in Ferguson. For example, Ferguson Woods, we use the counters to change the classification of the street to make it a collective street, and where we could get these STP funding. We also have community development block grant monies that come for low income, moderate families. So the general fund can only take in the amount of taxes that we are allowed to take in, but grants are there to subsidize them. We don't depend on grants, but grants are used to help us to keep the city moving, keep the infrastructure from crumbling as much as it has been in the past, and continue to work to find ways in the budget that we can allocate additional money for streets and personnel.
Thank you. Okay. Nicholas Kasoff, same question.
Well, first of all, we're missing a lot of grant opportunities. I had a meeting about 4 months ago with the previous director of public works and a member of council and some grant specialists. And those grant specialists were pointing out grants that the city could be using right now to improve our streets. And the former director of public works had never heard of these grants. So one thing that we're going to have to do is get a little bit smarter about bringing some of that money in. Now, having said that, you're right. just because free money drops out of the sky doesn't mean we can continue to maintain what we bought with that free money. So I would say, you know, we had a park down on Halpin. Now a half a block from that park, we have another park, and we don't have enough resources to maintain either one of them. There's graffiti all over the new park already. The construction sign, it hasn't been taken down, and it's been months since they were done building. And now we've got to mow 2 parks instead of 1. And you're right, the grants don't cover that, and we have to be smart.
Okay, this is directed at you, Nicholas. What is your plan to address public safety issues?
Well, so we've got 2 public safety issues in Ferguson, really. We've got traffic and we've got violent crime. And thank God we have a new police chief, because our failure police chief that finally left, who, from listening to people in council, everybody thought he was wonderful, but the people who live here that see cars going 80 miles per hour down their street and hear gunfire every night weren't so crazy about the guy. Bringing in a new police chief is a start. Getting our police department fully staffed and getting rid of some of these fake policies that Frank McCall implemented. I always heard from him and from some of our elected officials, oh, we can't do that because of the consent decree. The consent decree doesn't say it, the DOJ doesn't say it, and it's just an excuse for not doing your job. I know we've got good police officers who want to get out there, do their job, and make this community better. I'm going to stand behind them, and we're going to deal with these public safety issues.
Lisa, could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. It says, what is your plan to address public safety issues?
My number 1 plan has already been in place, and that we hired a new police chief. The new police chief has been a commander over task force for crime, and also working with the mayors in the various municipalities and the police chief. We are coming together to work collectively because of the high crime in the kids stealing the cars. So we are working collectively to combat that problem of the kids stealing cars. As far as the gunshots, we have shot spotters in place, and officers are able to go to where the shot spotters has pinged in that particular area to find out about the shell casing and the possibility of where the shot's coming from. However, if we're going to improve public safety, it becomes the responsibility of the people in a community to do the things that they need to do. Lock your car up, don't leave your car running. And when you see something wrong in the neighborhood, call the police non-emergency number and report it.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Jones, let's see. How will you address the problems encountered by residents in some of the apartment complexes?
Well, let's go back to January 2022, when 100 people were faced with evictions. And I had the opportunity to work with Washington University, their mediation team, and bring them in, work with the Urban League and the various nonprofit organizations to work with these people to get the funding that they need to catch their rent up. I will not stand to allow any apartment manager to evict women and children in January. But however, I will work with that department management team to work with the nonprofits to get the people rent paid. And these people were living in subhuman conditions, bringing mediation in. They had an opportunity to tell the mediator what was going on in their property, and the property manager had to come in and fix the problem. So it's not only one problem, but it's several problems wrapped up into one. And you have to be savvy enough to know where to go to get these problems solved.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, Nicholas Kasoff.
Yeah, we're real
Good
slow
question.
on that mute button, huh? As far as the apartment complexes, we've got two issues: public safety and code enforcement. As far as public safety goes, Chief McCall, who was supported by certain people on council right up till he left, was approached by one of the major apartment complexes who was willing to give a free apartment, furnish it, provide food and a computer if we would just put a police substation in the apartment complex. Chief McCall laughed at them and it never happened. And they've spoken with me since then, and they stand ready to have a police substation in their apartment complex if only the city was willing to do it. Now, as far as code enforcement, that's a quality of life issue. And we need to be, like I said before, proactive. We need to not just only go over there when something's on fire or they haven't had hot water for a year. We need to be looking at these apartment complexes every time we do an inspection. And we need to go through there every week and make sure that the obvious externally visible things are taken care of. We have never done that in the years that I've been here. And that's why some of these apartment complexes have gotten really run down. So we're going to have a change of direction in code enforcement as well. And we're going to make sure that these people have a decent place to live. And as far as paying rent and eviction, there's legal due process and state law. So you can't stop anybody from evicting somebody. That's a fantasy.
Okay, next question, and this is directed towards you. If elected mayor, what will you do to stimulate social and economic development in the Ferguson community?
Well, the first thing that I would have done to stimulate economic development in our community would be to get rid of the number one barrier to economic development in our community. But thankfully, he resigned, so that's not going to be an issue anymore. We need to have great economic development staff. First of all, to finish what's happening on Florissant Road. When I moved here in 2005, Florissant Road was a ghost town. The brew house didn't exist. None of the lofts existed. And we've really come a long way, but we've got to finish the job. And then we also have to take advantage of the opportunities that are going to arise on West Florissant, because they're investing millions of dollars in a streetscape project up there. We've got to step up our game on West Florissant as well. So hiring an excellent economic development director is going to be a top priority for the Kasoff administration.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Jones, what will you do to stimulate social economic development in the Ferguson community?
To stimulate social economic development, it simply just means you need to have economic development with a conscience. And if you're going to develop an area, don't displace or gentrify the people who are in that area. That's what social economic development is. Before it's the West Florissant Avenue project, I work closely with our regional partners to get that $18.2 million to come to stimulate the West Florissant corridor. And by doing that, we're going to bring in new commercial development. It's going to be a safer street. Right now, it's 33,000 cars that pass on West Florissant. That new street project from that $18.2 million and $10 million from Corey Bush, it's going to slow that traffic down, bring in developers, start a new life to that corridor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this question is directed towards you, Mayor Jones. How important do you feel citizen boards and commissions are in creating opportunities for involvement and input into city governance?
I believe that The boards of commission are the lifeline to the government. The board and commission are there to help send messages or make proposals to the council. For example, planning and zoning, they're there to work with the new businesses coming in, the new developers come in, and make a recommendation to the council. The boards and commission were one of the number one things that I worked on when I became on the council. The Board of Adjustment didn't have no one on the board, and the lady needed to have some information about a fence. I went out knocking on doors to get the Board of Adjustment filled, the Economic Development Sales Tax Board, the Senior Citizen Board. So it's very important that we be out in the community, talk with the residents, invite them to come to be on the boards and commission, because they are vital
Okay.
to the
Okay,
growth
time. That's
of the
time.
city.
That's time. Okay, thank you. Okay, same question.
So here's how important I think boards and commissions are. When the Civilian Review Board went for 6 months having to repeatedly cancel their meetings because they didn't have a quorum, because nobody on council went out and got new members for it, I went out, recruited new members, and had them submit applications to the city. The city took so long to approve those applications that one of the people changed their mind before she was ever approved. Now, I've done the same thing on some other boards, and it takes forever and people get discouraged. So it's a very simple application process. I'm going to be the cheerleader for boards and commissions. I will fill all the seats on the boards and commissions with qualified residents who live in the city and pay their taxes. Our boards and commissions will comply with the Sunshine Law, because we know that some of them weren't. And council is going to start listening to boards and commissions during council meetings, because
Okay,
that doesn't
thank
happen
you.
either.
Thank you. Okay, time's up. All right. Okay, Nick, this one. How important are neighborhood associations in Ferguson, and do you attend them?
Neighborhood associations are very important, and it's unfortunate that a lot of them have fallen by the wayside in the past few years. That kind of feeds into that whole civic involvement that we were talking about 3 or 4 questions back. I go to the Jeske Park Neighborhood Association. That's my neighborhood, and we have a fairly decent turnout. It could be better, but I've been to a couple of other neighborhood associations where the only person there was the council rep and me, and we waited around for 15 or 20 minutes and just called it. So we obviously need to revamp the neighborhood associations and get people interested in them, because they're kind of the glue that sticks our community together, and they are a source for a lot of good information and guidance for city officials. So I love the neighborhood associations. Let's get them working again.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Jones, same question.
I attend the neighborhood associations, and most of the neighborhood associations for the last 2 years went on Zoom because of the pandemic, and some of them are holding their meetings hybridly. For example, the Forestwood Neighborhood Association, they meet every first Tuesday of the month. And when I attend the neighborhood association, they have about 20 to 25 people that attend their particular association, but they are important because the neighbors have an opportunity to talk to their council rep. And in addition to that, the police department comes out and give a report, and the neighbors have an opportunity to discuss various things happen in their neighborhood. So the neighborhood association is a great way to get information out to the residents, especially when we're doing things on council. So my goal is that the neighborhood associations that are meeting continue to meet, and the ones who are not meeting can do something more hybrid, like the Forestwood Association.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and this is directed towards you, Mayor Jones. How should ARPA funds be allocated?
The ARPA funds Well, Ferguson received $4 million of ARPA fund and additional $19,958 of ARPA funds. The ARPA fund should be allocated as stressed in the manual that was came out with the first round of payment for the ARPA funds. They are to help the residents to get back on their feet. Some people, I could take an example, what I sent in to the city manager is that, wow, is that each resident will get at least $1,000 to do home improvement. In addition to that, we have a park, the Nesbitt Newton Park needed some additional playground equipment. In addition to that, working with nonprofits such as the Metro Market Bus, who comes out in the summertime to have fresh fruits and vegetables to our citizens in underserved area. So the $4 million is still being talked about, but we have not quite allocated it as of yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Nick Kasoff, same question.
Well, we've already got a program that'll give you $1,000 for home improvements, and the city just mailed out to all the residents an invitation and an application because so few people applied for the $1,000. They had to put out a mailing on it. So I don't necessarily think we need to extend that even further. The thing that there's two things we need to be careful of. One of them, of course, is we have to comply with the federal law, which restricts how you can use those funds. But the other thing is, let's not use them in a way that creates additional costs down the road. The council had floated an idea at one point of spending $500,000 putting new street lights in. We got to pay the monthly bill on those streetlights if we do that, and it goes on forever. So we've got to be careful that we don't use ARPA money to dig the city into a financial hole, and rather that we use it to improve the city.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Kasoff, with Emerson Electric considering moving to a new location in St. Louis, what steps do you think the city of Ferguson should take to encourage them to stay at their current location?
Well, Emerson Electric actually sold the campus to another company and leased it back for 3 years. So that horse has already left the barn, unfortunately. And so what we're looking at is what's going to be the future of the Emerson site. Emerson's been a great corporate citizen. They donate a lot of money to projects around the city. They maintain wood stock from Bermuda Road all the way down to their campus, which is city and private property, and they keep it beautiful at no cost. It's going to be very hard to replace Emerson. So, and the problem is corporate campuses aren't a thing anymore. Monsanto in Creve Coeur just sold off half their campus for residential development. So the idea that Emerson or some other company is going to have a big campus there, probably not going to happen. We need some smart economic development people in the city who can come up with some viable alternatives for how that land is going to be used down the road.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Jones, same question.
When we first got the communication that Emerson was planning on leaving, the city manager, the planning and zoning, we immediately started talking to the representative from Emerson and getting all the details as to what they are planning on doing with that campus. Also, they leased it from Blackstone. In addition to that, we are working with the St. Louis Partnership as they work with other nonprofits to look at the Emerson campus and see what will be the best way to have that campus to be alive. We at the city of Ferguson is on top of the Emerson move and working diligently every day. Even though the planning and zoning person is going, we still work with the St. Louis Partnership and the other nonprofits to talk about what we're going to do with Emerson.
Thank you. Okay. Mayor Jones, How can we hold absentee landlords accountable for maintaining the properties they own?
The best way to hold absentee landlords accountable is make certain that the policies that we place for absentee landlords are enforced. And if an absentee landlord does not meet all of the criteria about the property, then they should not be getting licensed. We do give them provisional license for them to bring the property up to code. But however, absentee landlords, they're not always out of town. We have a lot of absentee landlords who live in the city of Ferguson who rent out property, and that property is a disgrace. So in getting with the code enforcement, making certain these licenses are intact and the policies that we have on the book are enforced. However, if we can move these abandoned houses and these vacant houses to back on the tax roll as occupied owner, we will not have as many problems as we've been having in the past with absentee.
Okay,
landlords.
thank you, time. Okay, Mr. Kasoff.
I don't care if it's an absentee landlord, a local landlord, or an owner occupied house. I care that they're cutting their grass, not parking junk cars in their yard, not selling drugs. I care what they do and how they maintain their property. Ferguson has ordinances and Ferguson has code enforcement inspectors to enforce them. We just don't do it. And we don't enforce other things. We have a responsible landlord ordinance, and it's supposed to be that if the police come to your property too many times, you're supposed to put that tenant out or not renew their lease. I know owner occupants in some of the neighborhoods right near me who are being terrorized by renters that live next door to them. They call the police over and over again. The police come, the police go, nothing happens. We need to start holding landlords accountable under the provisions of the responsible landlord ordinance that we've had for about 15 years, and that problem will be solved.
Thank you. Okay, last question. And so we're going to start with you, Nick. And in a diverse community, how would you reduce tensions?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
In a diverse community, how would you reduce tensions?
Well, that's of course the question in Ferguson. And back in 2014, we were the focus of the entire world, and then we turned into a hashtag. And now all of that's gone, and we have to learn how to live together. When you talk to your neighbors and your friends who may be of a different race, we're all pretty much the same. We all go to work every day. We want to live in safe neighborhoods and have well-maintained streets and honest city government. All this racial conflict that you hear about, it happens in politics. It happens at some of our city council meetings, but we've got black and white people living on my street and we all love each other as neighbors. That's where it all begins. And you spread that out over an entire community, respect and love one another. I believe we can do it here in Ferguson. Ferguson's a special place.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Jones.
Could you repeat the question? I didn't get the last part of it.
Okay, in a diverse community, what would you do to reduce tensions?
Oh, in a diverse community that we live in right now,
Yeah.
and the best way that I found to reduce tension, have an event and invite people from the various neighborhoods to come together and talk with one another. We had an event at the First Baptist Church, and it was a family fun day. And people from all walks of life, all over Ferguson, came to that family fun day. And they did talk about detentions. And what was produced from that is that at least once a quarter, they are going to come together from the various neighborhoods to talk about how they can improve and make this a better place to work and play for everyone. So in this diverse community, there is various ways to resolve detention, and the main way is coming together as one.
Thank you. Okay, that was our last question. And so now we're going to have closing statements, and we have 2 minutes, and we're going to start off with candidate Nicholas Kasoff. 2 minutes, closing statements.
There was a lot of good questions tonight, and it's encouraging to be running for office where so many residents have a strong interest in the future of our community. The residents of this community are the customers of City Hall, and as mayor, I'll work to ensure that we get the service we deserve. I'll support a new city manager who shares a vision for service, efficiency, and transparency. I'll work with our new police chief to step up enforcement against the reckless drivers who terrorize our streets. I will ensure that the city has great economic development staff so that we can finish the job on Florissant Road and seize the opportunity created by the redevelopment of West Florissant. I'll work for consensus and respect on city council so that every interested resident is treated fairly. And most important of all, I'll work for quality of life for every resident and every neighborhood. Whether you're Black or white, rich or poor, living in a big mansion or 2 bedrooms on a slab, we all want the same things from our city. We want streets and parks that are well maintained, city offices that serve us well. We want to hear crickets when we go to bed, not gunfire. We want to feel secure in our homes, and we want honest representatives that serve our city for the greater good, not their own personal interests. We need better leadership for a better Ferguson. And with your vote for Kasoff for mayor, we're going to have that in just a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Ella Jones.
As mayor, I have worked diligently to establish relationships, intergovernmental relationship with local and state and on the federal level to bring resources here to Ferguson. Number one, our public safety is important. Having a new police chief, working with the police chief to improve what's going on. The RAISE grant that I worked with to bring to make a difference in the West Florissant corridor, social economic, working with various nonprofits, and more importantly, going up to the Capitol, going to the certificate of needs committee to testify so Auburn Hills can get their license to open up a skilled nursing home to provide jobs. There was over 50 jobs was there. In addition to that, the well-being of our people. The flood we had back in July, it devastated a lot of people. I work regionally, I work with FEMA to come into Ferguson and open a disaster relief center at the Empowerment Center, so our people wouldn't have to travel far. People suffered losing food and clothes, work with the food bank to bring food here for our people. More importantly, I am a proven, experienced leader, and I am the best person for the job. When you go to vote on April the 4th, vote to re-elect the mayor, me, Ella Jones, so we could continue to move Ferguson forward and work with the various nonprofits to help our people to move forward and complete this consent decree. Vote Ella Jones,
thank
number
you.
1 on the ballot.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. Thank you to our candidates for participating, and I want to say thank you to all of you for making this a successful event. Thank you to our hosts and to Sue Williams, our timekeeper, and the volunteers from the League of Women Voters. If you found today's forum to be useful, think about joining us by becoming members of the St. Louis League of Women Voters, or make a modest donation if you appreciate the free services we provide to educate voters. The polls will be open on Tuesday, April 5th from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
April 4th.
Accurate and nonpartisan information about candidates and ballots on issues on vote. You can go to vote411.org. If you need to find out where your polling place is, please call the St. Louis Board of Elections at 314-615-1833 or the League of Women Voters at 314-961-6869. But by all means, whatever you do, vote. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Lisa.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, League of Women Voters.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks to everyone. I'll see everyone at the polling places on the 4th, Tuesday.
April the
That's
4th.
right, April 4th. Okay,
April 4th. Have a good night. Take care,
okay.
Nick. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Sue. All right.